The conference room fell into a heavy silence. Maya Williams' voice had sliced through the air like a blade. "This clause reverses liability. If you sign here, sir, your company will be held responsible." She stood just inside the glass doorway on the 27th floor, 16 years old, wearing borrowed sneakers and a visitor's badge labeled Gatekeeper. All eyes followed her finger as it hovered over the contract Jackson Hale was seconds from signing. Jackson's pen froze mid-air. His silver eyebrows tightened. Across the table, his wife Clara blinked rapidly, tension etched in every line of her face. Derek Vaughn, the polished Texas mogul in a navy suit and $1,000 smile, chuckled softly. "Excuse me?" he asked, voice smooth as oil. "I read the clause on page 14, Maya said evenly. "It transfers all post-merger liabilities to Hale Investments. Fraud, lawsuits, debt defaults, everything. If anything goes wrong, your company eats the losses." Her words dropped like stones into the tension-filled room. Executives shifted uncomfortably. One man dragged the document closer. Another tapped his tablet, scrolling furiously. Clara leaned in, her voice a sharp whisper. "She shouldn't be here. Isn't she the janitor's daughter?" But Maya didn't flinch. Just 8 hours earlier, her world had still been quiet and predictable. The night cleaning crew moved through the building like clockwork. Maya, in a faded hoodie and name tag labeled Guest Services, wiped down glass doors while her mother vacuumed the marble halls. It was their routine: arrive, clean, leave, no questions, no fuss. Until she saw the brochure. It had been tucked in the copier tray, its gold-stamped cover reading Final Consolidation Agreement. Something in Maya's gut told her to stop. Not out of curiosity, out of instinct. Unlike most kids her age, Maya didn't scroll TikTok in every free moment. She read policy guides, watched finance documentaries with her grandfather, and once wrote a 10-page essay called How Enron Collapsed. So when she skimmed through the document and saw the clause, buried under subsection C, third paragraph, her heart stopped. A legal trap, cleanly disguised. She ran to find her mother. "Mom, have you ever seen a contract that transfers everything, entire company liability like this?" Denise didn't even look up from her work. "Maya, don't go through their things. You want us both fired?" But Maya's lips pressed shut while her mind kept racing. Now, in the room filled with mahogany walls, gleaming tablets, and 7-figure egos, Maya stood unshaken. Clara clutched the chair arms. Derek narrowed his eyes. Jackson Hale turned his full attention to the girl. "You said the clause reverses liability?" he asked quietly. "Yes, sir," Maya replied. "It's dressed up in technical language, but that's the trick. If your legal team didn't comb every line, you'd never see it. It doesn't protect your firm. It sets you up to take the fall." Clara's voice iced over. "Jackson, this is absurd. She's a child." But Jackson wasn't listening. He flipped to page 14. His eyes moved quickly, then stopped. The muscle in his jaw tightened. Derek leaned forward, voice dripping with disbelief. "Are we seriously entertaining a conspiracy theory from someone who, holds the door open?" Maya's cheeks flushed, but her voice stayed steady. "You can laugh," she said, "but if he signs that paper, your company's name will be on every future lawsuit. This clause doesn't protect you, it buries you." For a moment the only sound in the room was the hum of the air conditioner. Then Jackson spoke, his voice deep and final. "Escort her out." Security moved quickly, but Maya didn't lower her head, not even as they reached the door. She turned once, meeting Jackson Hale's eyes. And in that split second, something shifted. He no longer saw the janitor's daughter. He saw the warning he almost missed, a mistake he nearly made, a girl who had no business knowing what she did, and yet had just saved his company from ruin. His pen never touched the paper. The next morning, the silence in the Hale Investments lobby felt different. It wasn't the calm before disaster. It was the breath after one had been averted. Maya Williams sat alone in the security office, arms crossed, chin lifted, heart pounding. And for the first time in her life she realized something no classroom could teach her. The power to speak truth doesn't come from where you sit. It comes from knowing when to stand. The marble floor of the Hale Investments lobby reflected the cold, sterile light pouring in from the towering glass windows behind her. Maya had been sitting there for over an hour. No one offered her a glass of water, no one made eye contact, no one told her what came next. Beside her, Denise sat upright, her back stiff against the hard bench. Her silence said more than words ever could. She hadn't spoken since they were escorted off the night shift and told to wait downstairs. But worry, tight and raw, flashed in her eyes every time she looked at her daughter. "I'm sorry, Mom," Maya finally whispered. Denise turned slowly to face her, her expression unreadable. "You should be," she said coolly. "I clean that building to keep food on our table, not so you can march into a boardroom like you run the place." Maya dropped her eyes. "I wasn't trying to embarrass you," she murmured, "but I saw something dangerous. I couldn't let him sign it." "I raised you to be brave," Denise said after a long pause. Her voice had softened, but it still carried weight. "But not reckless." Before Maya could respond, the glass door opened. A stern woman from Human Resources walked in, clipboard in hand, heels clicking like punctuation on polished tile. "Mrs. Williams," she said without glancing at Maya, "your clearance has been suspended pending internal review. We'll contact you if needed." Denise stood, jaw clenched, and gripped Maya's arm. "Let's go." Maya's stomach tightened. As they stepped out into the cold Chicago wind, she turned to look back at the tower. Steel and glass stretching into a sky that now felt impossibly far away. Just hours ago, she'd believed she could make a difference in that building. Now she wasn't even allowed through the front door. But somewhere far above her, on the 30th floor, a different silence settled. Jackson Hale sat alone in his office, the unsigned contract lying open on the desk in front of him. The legal pages looked less like paperwork now, and more like evidence at a crime scene. He ran a finger across the clause Maya had identified. Paragraph C, line 3. She was right. It wasn't just misleading, it was intentional. The language was crafted to appear standard, but it was anything but. It was a razor hidden in legal ribbon, perfectly positioned to gut his company. He leaned back, pressing his fingers into his temples. How had they all missed it? Clara's voice echoed in his head, too loud to ignore. "That's boilerplate, Jackson, just trust me." Once, that word had meant something. Now it felt hollow. He opened his laptop and began pulling every contract he'd signed with Derek Vaughn's conglomerate. Legal phrasing, shell subsidiaries, offshore guarantees. It was all too coordinated. "Oh, careful." His phone buzzed. "Clara." He hesitated, then picked up. "You didn't sign it, did you?" she asked immediately. "No," he replied. His voice was flat. "She's overthinking it, Jackson. We've vetted Derek. We've done this dance a dozen times." He stared at the clause again. She saw what none of us did. Clara scoffed. "She's a teenager, the janitor's daughter. You're going to let a child derail a billion-dollar deal?" Jackson didn't answer. "I'm coming over," she said curtly, then hung up. Miles away, Maya sat on the worn sofa in their apartment. A mug of cocoa, long gone cold, rested in her hands. The small space smelled faintly of lemon polish and her mother's lavender lotion. Across from her, Denise scrolled through job listings, jaw tight. "Do you regret it?" Maya asked quietly. Denise exhaled, the sound more tired than angry. "I regret that you lost faith in adults doing their jobs." Maya didn't respond, but deep down something told her she hadn't been wrong. A ping broke the silence. But it was an email, from a name she didn't recognize. "Robert Barnes." Subject line, "Did you see it too?" Her pulse quickened. She clicked. The message was brief. "I used to work there. I know what you saw. If you want to talk, I'm listening." Maya stared at the screen, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. Then she began to type. Because maybe, just maybe, she wasn't alone. That same evening, on the upper floor of the Hale Investments tower, Jackson unlocked an old file from his private safe. The label read, Hale Barnes Internal Review. He flipped through faded pages. Risk reports, irregular audits, red flag memos ignored by the British Oversight Board. It was all coming together now. Maya hadn't just caught a legal trap. She had tripped the wire of a cover-up. And whatever happened next, Jackson knew, this was no longer about a teenager disrupting a meeting. This was the beginning of something much, much bigger. 2 years ago, on a single piece of paper marked in red ink, Robert Barnes had written a warning. Too exposed. If they embed the trap in the signature clause, we're finished. Signed, R.B. Jackson leaned back in his chair. That note now burned into his memory. For the first time in years, a foreign emotion crept in. Doubt. And that emotion had a name. Clara Hale never liked to be kept waiting. She strode into Jackson's office with the confidence of someone who had never heard the word no. Her heels struck the oak floor like a metronome of power. She didn't sit. She didn't smile. Instead, she looked down at the unsigned contract still lying on the glossy black table. It's still sitting there, she said, arms folded. You know I've had a day. Jackson didn't look up. And I'll need more than that. Clara's tone hardened. This deal is time-sensitive. Derek's offering terms no one else in the market will even touch. You saw the projections. I also saw the clause, Jackson said, finally meeting her eyes. The one that almost bankrupted my company. You read it. You told me it was nothing. Clara walked around the desk, her manicured nail dragging slowly across the edge of the contract. Pummeled Jackson. You know how these contracts are written. Are you seriously placing the judgment of the janitor's daughter above mine? Jackson didn't flinch. She saw it. None of us did. Not you. Not legal. Not even me. A long silence followed. The only sound was the quiet hum of the air vents above. She's a kid, Clara said evenly. And the fact that she's making you second-guess everything, that's what's dangerous. No, Jackson said as he stood, his voice low and steady. What's dangerous is that she might be right. That night, in a tiny apartment across town, Maya sat cross-legged on the floor by the fireplace. Her laptop screen glowed in the dark as she flipped through encrypted files that Barnes had sent. Tax documents, shell company breakdowns, side-by-side comparisons of merger clauses. She didn't grasp every term, but she understood enough to know this wasn't just greed. It was sabotage dressed as business. Barnes had explained over the phone. Derek Vaughan had used nearly identical language in a Houston acquisition. The target company assumed full liability. Within 6 months, it folded under the weight of legal costs. Vaughan walked away richer. Maya had highlighted phrases that rang alarm bells. Indemnity, conditional liability, burden of enforcement. The words were cold, precise, and lethal. I still can't believe he married that woman again, Maya muttered. From the kitchen, her mother snorted softly without looking up from the sink. Power makes people do dumb things. Clara always wanted more than she was ever given. Meanwhile, back in the city's golden heart, Jackson Hale sat inside a private lounge on the top floor of a luxury high-rise. Whiskey untouched beside him. He wasn't there to drink. He was there to watch. Across the room, just barely veiled behind frosted glass, Clara sat at a table, smiling, laughing. Across from her was Derek Vaughan. Her hand rested lightly on his wrist. His smile was relaxed, familiar, intimate. Jackson's breath caught in his throat. He couldn't hear the words, but the body language said everything. Clara leaned in. Derek nodded. Then, casually, almost like a joke, he handed her a small flash drive. His fingers brushed hers, slow, deliberate. Jackson turned away, bile rising in his throat. Had he built a life with this woman, or had he been her stepping stone all along? At home, Maya's phone buzzed. A new message from Barnes. Check Clara's offshore transfers, tripled activity, Cayman, BVI. Zurich. Maya's jaw clenched. "And she's not just ignorant," she whispered. "She's involved." Hands trembling, she opened a database Barnes had unlocked for her. Her cursor hovered over the results. Clara Hale, linked to an inactive trust account in the British Virgin Islands. Then another message popped in. This time, it wasn't Barnes. It was from Hale Investments' internal compliance team. On the other side of the city, Jackson opened the alert. Subject: unauthorized transfer attempt, flagged activity. He clicked. Clara had attempted a $2,500,000 0-cents transfer from one of the firm's dormant reserve accounts, coded under legacy assets, previously untouched for years. Block. Just in time. Jackson's shoulders slumped into his chair. The betrayal wasn't just business. It was personal. The noose wasn't tightening, it was already around his neck. And somewhere in that same restless night, 3 people stared at their ceilings, each lost in thought. Jackson Hale, staring down the ruin of trust. Clara, somewhere high above the city, sipping champagne she hadn't earned. And Maya Williams, heart pounding, finally understanding just how deep this corruption ran. The game wasn't over, but it was just beginning. Maya Williams held the pieces of a puzzle far too big for a 16-year-old girl. And across the city, Clara Hale sat beside Derek Vaughan in the back of a black SUV, whispering beneath the hum of traffic. He started digging. Derek didn't flinch. "Then we bury it," he said coolly, "before he reaches the roots." It had all begun with a single email. No subject line, no sender, just one anonymous message and a single audio file. Alone in his office, long after the last assistant had left for the night, Jackson Hale stared at the screen. The silence around him felt heavy, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. He clicked play. Clara's voice came first, smooth and composed. "Don't ask questions. If I press at the right moment." Then Derek's low drawl followed. "And if he does, we remind him what he has to lose." Jackson froze. He replayed the file. Once, twice, a third time. Each repetition drove the knife deeper. When he finally stopped, something inside him didn't shatter, it settled. Cold, clear. Final. He forwarded the file to his personal attorney. Then he leaned back in his chair and stared at the ceiling again. Only this time he wasn't confused. He was awake. Clara hadn't just been involved. She was orchestrating the entire thing. Across town, Maya stood outside the bronze double doors of the Washington Herald Library, gripping a manila folder and a flash drive Barnes had mailed her that morning. Her fingers weren't shaking from the wind, but from fear. All their findings were converging now, pointing in one unmistakable direction. Someone wasn't just trying to defraud Hale Investments. Someone was trying to bury it. Inside the computer lab, she sat down at a public terminal. The files were encrypted, but Barnes had included a handwritten decryption key. Her fingers danced across the keyboard. And slowly, line by line, the truth unfolded. 3 mergers, 3 corporate implosions. Each time, Derek Vaughan. Each file contained metadata, subtle but undeniable, traced back to Clara Hale's digital credentials. She hadn't just aided Derek Vaughan. She had been doing this for years. That night, Maya arrived at Robert Barnes' apartment. But the door was ajar. The space inside was eerily quiet. No signs of a struggle, no sounds, no Robert. Only a single envelope on the kitchen table, marked in black ink, M.W. Inside were 2 things: a USB drive and a single sheet of notebook paper scrawled in haste. "They know I've been helping you. Don't come back. Find someone you trust, soon." Meanwhile, Jackson Hale sat in the driver's seat of his car parked outside an abandoned courthouse on the city's west side. The building had long since shuttered, but he wasn't here for a judge. He was here to meet Victoria Chan, civil rights attorney, former prosecutor, known for cases so radioactive that no one else would touch them. She emerged from the darkness like a shadow in motion, her black wool coat trailing behind her like the robe of justice itself. Without pleasantries, she opened the passenger door and sat down. "Mr. Hale," she said crisply, "you've come to the right place, but this isn't just fraud." "I know," Jackson replied. "It's coordinated financial sabotage, possibly extortion." Victoria narrowed her eyes. "And you want to bring them down?" "I want to protect my company," he said, then paused. "And I want to protect the girl who saw it first." She raised an eyebrow. "A girl?" "She's 16, he said. "Her name is Maya Williams. She saw through all of it before anyone did." For the first time the attorney smiled. "Then she might be our most valuable witness." The next morning Maya returned to Hale Tower. Security was tighter now, cameras repositioned, guards more alert. She wasn't on the visitor list, so she waited outside, her hands gripping a sealed evidence bag. A maintenance worker passed by. Maya recognized him. He'd mopped the marble floors beside her just 2 weeks ago. He glanced around and leaned in close. "Mr. Hale said, if you ever come back, I should take you straight up." She followed him through the freight elevator, the air thick with tension. When Jackson saw her, something in his posture softened. He stood, not as an executive, but as a man who had finally located his blind spot. "I owe you more than an apology," he said quietly. "I owe you the truth." Maya met his eyes, steady as stone. "Then let's bring it into the light," she said, "before someone else disappears." They sat side by side in his private meeting room, surrounded by contracts, screenshots, and timelines, like generals over a war map. Victoria Chan joined them a few minutes later. She offered Maya a nod, not condescending, not cautious, but one of quiet recognition. "You ready for this?" she asked the girl. Maya looked at both of them. "Ready isn't the word," she said, "but I'm not leaving until it's done." "This is your fight now," Victoria said, her voice calm but resolute. "But if we move smart, we win before they know there's a war." Maya nodded. Her pulse was steady. Worry lingered in her eyes, but something stronger lived beneath it. For the first time, she didn't have to fight alone. And cracks in marble don't just weaken buildings. Sometimes they let the truth leak out. No trial date had been announced. No subpoenas had been issued. There were no headlines. But the war had already begun. Inside the executive suite at Hale Investments, the walls no longer bore polished plaques and investment charts. Now they were lined with whiteboards and red thread timelines listing aliases, wire transfers, offshore entities, and forged authorizations. And standing at the center of it all, a 16-year-old girl with a borrowed laptop and a crumpled brochure that had nearly been shredded. Maya Williams. By the window, Victoria Chan whispered urgently into her phone, her tone sharp and fast. Jackson stood silent beside the table, scanning a spreadsheet, his jaw locked. Then Victoria ended the call. "That was my contact at the DOJ," she said. "They're monitoring Vaughn quietly, but they'll need more to move." Maya reached into her backpack and pulled out a fresh yellow envelope. "This came just before Barnes vanished," she said, handing it over. Jackson opened it. Inside was a foreign account ledger. 3 names jumped off the page. Clara Hale, Derek Vaughn, Ravencross Holdings. A shell conglomerate, registered in Basel, Switzerland, receiving quarterly payments directly from the remains of collapsed mergers. Victoria let out a low whistle. "This isn't fraud, it's a machine. Predatory, precise, long-running." Jackson closed the folder slowly. "And it all started under my roof." That evening, Maya and her mother sat on the apartment fire escape, the city buzzing below them, yellow cabs, rooftop jazz, the hum of a city that never stopped. Denise passed her daughter a chipped mug of chamomile tea, her hands trembling. "Lee called again," she whispered. "Said if I don't keep quiet, they'll destroy your school record, erase your future." Maya stared straight ahead, unmoved. "They've tried. You're just a child, Maya. This isn't your battle. It became mine the moment they decided to use people like us as collateral." Her voice was quiet, but firm, unbreakable. And in that moment, Denise saw something in her daughter that no threat could erase. Not defiance. Purpose. Maya wasn't trying to prove herself. She was trying to make something right. The next night, at the glittering Hale Foundation Gala, Jackson Hale stepped onto the stage in a black tuxedo, his expression as sharp as the cufflinks on his sleeves. The gala had been Clara's idea. Luxury, charity, photo ops. But tonight, Jackson held the mic. "Before we begin," he said, his voice cutting through the room, "I need to speak to you not as an executive, but as a man who got it wrong." At the champagne bar, Clara's hand froze around her glass stem. "For years, I believed that building an empire meant trusting the numbers," Jackson continued. "But the numbers never lie. People do." A ripple spread through the crowd. Some turned to Clara. Others simply held their breath. "I reopened every document our board ever signed," Jackson said. "And what I found, what a brave young woman found, shocked me." From the back, Victoria watched silently, arms crossed, eyes steady. Jackson didn't wait for applause. He stepped off the stage and disappeared into the shadows before the questions could start. That night, Maya sat at her bedroom window. The city lights like stars scattered across the earth. In her lap, the same old brochure, now covered in notes and highlights. One line stood out in the latest email between Clara and Derek. "He's backing off, you know what to do." As Maya copied the files to a secure backup drive, her laptop screen flickered. Then her phone vibrated. A text from an unknown number. "Stop digging, or we dig first." Maya's hands trembled, but she didn't close the laptop. Instead, she grabbed a Sharpie, flipped to a blank page, and wrote 3 words in thick black ink. "Do not flinch." This was no longer about one company. It was a battlefield. And the girl they thought no one would ever listen to was now the voice no one could ignore. The morning headlines hadn't exploded yet. But the whispers were growing. In downtown elevators and around espresso machines, rumors flew. Something was happening at Hale Investments. Internal audit, merger collapse, a whistleblower. Anonymous but loud. Some said it was routine. Others said it smelled like blood in the water. And in his office, high above the noise, Jackson Hale stared out across the skyline, his voice low. "I built this company from scratch," he said, "and I nearly handed it to a ghost in a tailored suit." Across the room, Victoria flipped another page in the evidence file, then looked up. "This is bigger than one company," she said. Maya, standing beside them, didn't blink. "I know," she replied. "It's time they did, too." He hadn't surrendered. He had paused. And sometimes that's the most important thing. Maya placed the page with the BISE account number on the table. Derek Vaughn's signature move. Her voice was steady. "This isn't just business anymore," she said. "It's justice." Meanwhile, Clara Hale descended the grand marble staircase of her Lakeshore Drive penthouse, wrapped in navy blue silk like a queen unbothered by the rebellion stirring beneath her throne. The butler approached with a cream-colored envelope. "No return address," he noted. Clara opened it casually. Inside, a photo. Jackson, Maya, and Victoria Chan huddled over a document with 3 signatures circled in red. Alongside it, a single scrap of paper, Barnes's handwriting. She didn't blink, but she reached for the phone. "Derek," she said coldly, "we have a problem." That evening, inside the glittering halls of the Four Seasons Business Summit, Derek Vaughan moved through the crowd like a man who had nothing to hide. Expensive whiskey in hand, polished charm, flashing that $1 million grin to every investor he passed. But something had shifted. People nodded, but too briefly. Some avoided eye contact. Others whispered after he passed. Near the balcony he spotted Jackson. Now, Derek said with a smile, "You've stirred up quite the storm." Jackson didn't offer his hand. "I didn't stir anything," he replied. "I just stopped pretending I was blind." Derek leaned in. "Make this public, and you'll destroy more than just me. Your wife's name will be dragged, your board will panic, the market will bleed." Is that the legacy you want? Jackson's voice was calm, cold. I'd rather lose a company than keep living a lie. Back in the apartment, Denise lowered the phone and turned to her daughter. The school principal called, she said, her voice hollow. Someone filed a complaint. Said you're causing emotional disruption. Maya blinked. I haven't even been to school this week. Denise's hands trembled. They're trying to shake you. No, Maya said quietly, staring down at the stack of files in her lap. They're scared. By week's end, Victoria Chan had filed her first injunction against Vaughn Global, demanding an independent audit and whistleblower protection for Maya Williams. The media caught wind before sunset. Breaking news. Hale Investment suspense billion-dollar merger amid legal review. Maya's photo cropped from her school website was shared, posted, debated. Some praised her. Others doubted. A few attacked. But none could ignore her. At dawn, Jackson entered the boardroom, carrying a stack of documents. His executive team sat tense and pale. I should have seen this earlier, he said quietly. But I let comfort make me blind. He placed audit reports, fake contracts, and redacted emails on the table, alongside a thumb drive marked in Clara's handwriting. Then he looked each executive in the eye. You have a choice, he said. Help me clean this house from the inside, or watch it burn from the outside. There was silence. Then one by one heads nodded. Across town, in a Loop cafe, Clara Hale sat across from Derek Vaughn once more. Her charm was gone, her tone pure steel. He's not backing off. Derek slid a black dossier across the table. Inside, names. A judge. A journalist. A federal employee. Clara studied them in silence. We bury them, she said. But outside, on a city bus, Maya Williams held up her phone and recorded every frame. The game wasn't quiet anymore, and the unraveling had just begun. By Monday, Hale Investments was no longer a financial stronghold. It was a battle zone. Servers down, under the pretense of maintenance. Compliance teams pulling double shifts. Legal whispering behind closed doors. Charm monitoring every email with flagged keywords, offshore, Vaughn, whistleblower. And in the eye of the storm, Jackson Hale stood tall, calm, clear, and ready for war. In her penthouse, Clara sat in the gray morning light, phone pressed to her ear. They're coming for us, she whispered. Derek's voice on the other end was eerily calm. Let them come. We don't run. We retaliate. You told me the records were gone. Maybe they were. Someone dug them up. Clara's voice dropped to a hiss. You don't understand. This wasn't Jackson. It's her. It's a kid, and she just turned our whole tower upside down. There was a long pause. Then Derek spoke. Then maybe it's time we remind the world who holds the real power. At school, Maya kept her head down. Half the hallway stared at her like a ghost. The other half avoided her like she was contagious. Traitor, hero, liar, savior. She ignored them all, until she opened her locker. A folded piece of paper fluttered out. She opened it slowly. We know where you live. Keep quiet. Stay safe. Her hands trembled, but only for a moment. She folded the note, slipped it into her backpack, picked up her books, and walked straight to the principal's office. By the end of the day, Victoria Chan had secured a federal protective order for both Maya and her mother. That night, Jackson received a message from an unknown number. She's not worth it. He stared at it for a long time. Then he picked up the phone. Victoria, he said, can we bring in federal investigators? They're watching, she replied, but they need someone willing to go public. Jackson hesitated, then exhaled. Then I'll be the first. The next morning, the Chicago Tribune ran the headline. CEO exposes internal conspiracy at billion-dollar firm. Teenage whistleblowers, key in corporate takedown. Maya's name wasn't printed, but everyone knew. Radio shows, Twitter threads, morning TV panels. A global conversation had begun. And at a press conference, Jackson stood before cameras, flanked by Victoria Chan and 2 federal agents. "I was blind," he said, "but not just to a scam. I was blind to bravery. A 16-year-old girl saw what we refused to see. She saved this company from the inside out." He paused, letting the words sink in. "She was invisible to us, just a name badge, a uniform, a shadow in our halls." Never again. That afternoon, Maya returned home. A crowd had gathered on the sidewalk. Neighbors, journalists, strangers. One woman held a cardboard sign, handwritten. Strangers stood on the sidewalk holding handwritten signs. "We believe in Maya. Truth has no age." Maya stopped at the bottom step, stunned. The crowd wasn't chanting. They weren't hostile. They were waiting for her. Her mother gently took her hand. "They're not here to hurt you," Denise whispered. "They're here to thank you." But miles away, in a penthouse, wrapped in glass and silence, Derek Vaughan sat stone-faced. He stared at a still frame on his tablet, Maya Williams stepping onto the witness stand. Behind him, Clara paced in a tight circle, her heels clicking on imported marble. "She's still a child," Clara snapped. "Do you really think they'll let her take us down?" Derek's voice was ice. "Children don't take down empires," he said. "Symbols do." He slammed the tablet shut and walked toward the door. "Break her down," he growled, "before she becomes one." The steps of the courthouse groaned under the weight of flashing cameras. Gray clouds hung over downtown Chicago, but inside courtroom 12B, the air was electric with truth. Jackson Hale adjusted his tie. Victoria Chan reviewed her notes. And Maya Williams sat in the second row, her hair braided, her gaze unwavering, a quiet storm burning in her eyes. Across the aisle, Derek Vaughan looked smug. Clara sat beside him in a stone-gray suit, hands folded, expression vacant. Then the judge entered. "Please rise." Victoria rose first. She didn't speak with fire. She didn't need to. Her voice carried facts. Contracts, timestamps, shell companies, secret accounts. Every line laid bare how Vaughan and Clara had funneled liability away from themselves and into Jackson's company. Clara never looked at Jackson. Then came the moment everyone had waited for. "Your Honor," Victoria said, "the prosecution calls Maya Williams to the stand." Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Reporters scribbled furiously. Maya walked forward. Not as a victim, not even as a teenager, but as the first person who dared to speak truth in a room built to hide it. She placed her hand on the Bible. "I do." Then she sat. "Miss Williams," Victoria said gently, "how did you first get involved in this?" "I was helping my mom," Maya said. "She cleans the 27th floor. I saw a contract in the copy room. Something about the last signature didn't sit right. So I read the fine print." "What stood out to you?" "There was a hidden clause. It pushed all the risk onto Hale Investments. If anything went wrong, fraud, lawsuits, only one company would take the fall." "And why did you speak up?" Maya looked first at Clara, then at Vaughan, then at the jury. "Because just because I clean your floors doesn't mean I can't see your dirt." The courtroom went still. Even the judge paused. Clara's hand twitched. This time Derek Vaughan didn't smile. Cross-examination came next. Vaughan's attorney tried to rattle her. "Maintenance." "Williams, do you understand all the legal language in that document?" "No, sir," Maya answered. "But I understood enough to know someone was hiding something." "Do you consider yourself a legal expert?" "No, but I don't think you need a law degree to know when you're being lied to." The jury leaned in. They didn't see a kid anymore. They saw every factory worker, every janitor, every intern who'd ever been told to sit down and stay quiet. After a break, Jackson took the stand. "Mr. Hale," Victoria asked, "what made you believe her?" He looked at Maya. "My instinct said she was right, but more than that, she reminded me of something I forgot." "And what was that?" He took a breath. "And that integrity doesn't come with a title. Sometimes it's the janitor's daughter who sees the cracks before the board does." Then Clara Hale was called. The courtroom tensed. She took the stand, composed, elegant, till the prosecution played the audio clip. If he asks questions, remind him what he has to lose. Clara's shoulders dropped. Her hands shook. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," she whispered. "I thought if I could push the deal through, Jackson wouldn't have to know." "And when Maya exposed it?" Victoria asked. Clara closed her eyes. "I wanted her gone, because she saw everything I worked so hard to hide." Outside, the courthouse steps were a forest of cameras. Maya left through the side exit. Jackson followed. "You didn't have to come," she said. "I owe you," he replied, "for being the man you believed I was when you walked into that boardroom. You're that man now." Inside, Clara sat beside Vaughn in silence. The empire wasn't crumbling. It was collapsing. By noon the next day, the verdict was read. Maya sat between Victoria and her mother, her hands clenched in her lap. Jackson sat behind them. Across the aisle, Derek Vaughn looked smug. The jury returned. Regarding the charge of conspiracy to commit business fraud, guilty. Regarding the charge of financial document forgery, guilty. Regarding obstruction of legal contracts, guilty. Each word struck like a gavel on stone. The judge delivered the sentence: 10 years in federal prison, no parole for the first 7. Maya exhaled, for the first time in weeks. Outside, reporters swarmed. "Maya, what does it feel like to be the girl who saved a company?" "Mr. Hale, will you rebuild Hale Investments?" "Victoria, what's next for your young witness?" Maya answered only one question: "What do you want the world to remember from this trial?" She turned to the nearest camera. "Personal truth doesn't care what title you have, and justice doesn't care how clean your shoes are." In the weeks that followed, Hale Investments didn't fall. It transformed. Jackson Hale led a full restructuring. Clara's name was scrubbed from every record. Vaughn's assets were frozen. Victoria Chan was appointed Director of Ethics. And Maya Williams received a full scholarship. At a press conference in the very building she once cleaned, Jackson made the announcement: "We are establishing the Maya Williams Scholarship for students with vision and courage, because Maya didn't just protect this company, she reminded us of who we must be." Applause thundered. Maya stood beside him, calm and composed. That night, Jackson sat in his office, not alone. Maya stood across from him, holding a brown envelope. "I got my acceptance to Columbia." He smiled, proud. "You deserve more than that," he said. "You've earned a seat at any table you want." She paused. "Do you regret anything?" He turned to the window. "I regret not seeing it sooner. But I'll never regret standing up once I did." She left the envelope on his desk. Days later, Clara was placed in federal custody. No appeals, no statements. In a cold concrete cell, her empire had been reduced to headlines she could no longer control. Over and over she replayed the audio. "Just because I mop your floor doesn't mean I can't see your dirt." Back at Hale Investments, Jackson placed Maya's envelope on a shelf next to his awards. Beside it, a small plaque read, "The truth isn't loud, but it lasts." He leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. One girl once pointed at a contract and changed the world. The empire didn't collapse. It was rebuilt by the one person they never saw coming. Maya paused at the foot of the steps, stunned. All around her, strangers held signs that read, "We believe in Maya, truth has no age." Her mother gently took her hand. "They're not here to hurt you," she whispered. "They're here to thank you." Maya looked at the faces. Diverse, tearful, proud. And for the first time since that brochure landed in her hands, she felt something she hadn't allowed herself to feel until now. Peace. She climbed the steps not as a whistleblower, not as a janitor's daughter, not as a girl caught in something too big. She climbed as someone who had changed the outcome for everyone. Across town, in a glass-walled suite insulated by money and privilege, Derek Vaughn sat in silence. On his tablet was a single image, Maya on the witness stand, one hand raised, the other resting firmly on the Bible. Behind him, Clara Hale paced. "She's still a child," she hissed. "You really think they're going to let a child bring us down?" Derek didn't blink. "Children don't destroy empires," he said coldly. "Simples do." He stood up, slammed the tablet onto the table, and headed for the door. Break her before she becomes one. But they were too late. Inside Hale Investments' newly restructured executive floor, Maya now sat in a formal briefing room, papers laid out before her. On one side of the table, Jackson Hale, sleeves rolled up, pen in hand. On the other, Victoria Chan, now chair of the company's ethics committee. And between them, the plan. What started as one contract now inspired a complete review. Governance, oversight, hiring, reporting. Maya's voice, once ignored, was now at the center of it all. "From now on," Jackson said, "we don't just sign deals, we understand them." Maya nodded. "From now on, we look at the lines people try to hide." Weeks passed, and then a verdict beyond the courtroom. Clara Hale surrendered herself to federal custody in Wisconsin. No appeal, no statement, no last-minute strategy. In a cold cell, her legacy dissolved into the sound of news clips playing on repeat. Her name now shared headlines, not with Forbes accolades, but with felonies. And the line that haunted her most: "Just because I mop your floor doesn't mean I can't see your dirt." Back at Hale Investments, something unexpected happened. The company didn't collapse. It grew. Jackson led an internal audit on every major merger in the last decade. Dozens of employees came forward, many with buried concerns they were once too afraid to voice. For the first time, a culture of silence began to unravel. Victoria Chan was formally appointed Chief Integrity Officer, and Maya Williams, barely 17, was awarded a full-ride scholarship. At a company press conference, standing beside the man who once ignored her existence, Maya listened as Jackson made the announcement. "We're establishing the Maya Williams Scholarship for young minds with courage and vision." Maya didn't just protect this company, she reminded us who we are supposed to be. Thunderous applause followed. No one saw a cleaner. No one saw a child. They saw a light they'd once overlooked. That night Jackson sat in his office, this time not alone. Maya stepped in, holding a slim brown envelope. "I got into Columbia," she said, smiling faintly. His eyes lit up. "You deserve it." She hesitated. "Do you regret it?" He looked out at the skyline, now glimmering under the Chicago night. "I regret not seeing you sooner," he said honestly. "But I'll never regret standing up, once I finally saw what was right." Maya left the envelope on his desk, the name on it marking a new chapter. Autumn turned the city gold. And one morning Maya boarded a flight to New York, bound for a future she built not by chance, but by choice. In her bag, alongside books and notes, was that original brochure, now worn, folded, sacred, a reminder that sometimes what others discard becomes the very spark that lights the truth. And inside Hale Investments, in a quiet display near the lobby, beneath a spotlight and framed in glass, hung that same contract. The one with the hidden clause. Next to it a small plaque read, "One person reading closely can change everything." Maya Williams was never meant to be in the boardroom. She was never meant to find the clause. She was never meant to make a difference. But she did. Not because she had power, but because she had conviction. And in a world that often tells people like her to stay silent, Maya proved that truth, no matter how quietly it arrives, has a way of being heard. Always.